Today's debate, it will be Trinity Valley versus Oak Ridge. On the affirmative, it is Trinity Valley. They will be convincing you that a single-gender classroom in the middle school will improve the quality of education. And on the flip side, on the negative is Oak Ridge. They will be convincing you that single-gender classrooms will not improve the quality of education. And before we begin, I want to introduce our debaters today and our judges. Over on the Trinity Valley side, introduction and opening statement will be made by Ella Wells. The rebuttals by Harper Dunn and Isha Munsani. The cross-examination, Kyle Zeta, Austin Bird, and Lulu Wu. The closing statement by Jeffrey Sterling, and the note-taker and yielder, Taylor Henry. And Trinity Valley is coached by Yuri Nevyestich. On the Oak Ridge side, our opening statement will be made by Hannah Shabazi. The cross-examination by Nicholas Miller, Ananya Kumar, and Zaki Faruqi. Our rebuttals on the Oak Ridge side will be Camille Mishak and Ethan McLean. And closing statement will be made by Maya Matthews. I want to thank our judges, Michelle Cole, Belinda Nimick, and Lauren Matoka, and our timekeeper, Daphne McCleary. And Oak Ridge, the coach, is Claire Reddick. So at this time, we are going to have our affirmative opening statement. It will be 4 minutes long. That will be the time allowed. The debater will read a prepared speech giving arguments that support the resolution. Trinity Valley.
Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. With these words in mind, I stand firmly resolved that single-gender classrooms in the middle school would improve the quality of education. Our value for this debate is growing life skills, because middle school is where children learn and hone valuable life skills for the rest of their lives. We will prove that improvement in the quality of education in middle school is best achieved by the affirmative. These single-gender classrooms will boost the academic achievements of both genders, along with the self-esteem of both the young women and men that will be taking advantage of this opportunity. We have two contentions, each of which uphold our value of growing life skills. Contention 1. Academic achievement is boosted in middle school. Contention 2. Self-esteem will be fostered more effectively through single-gender classrooms in middle school. Contention 1. Boosting academic achievement. There is a large body of research supporting a gain in academic achievement when students participate in single-gender classrooms. Furthermore, there is an academic gap based on gender that occurs in middle school that can be narrowed by single-gender classrooms, therefore improving the academic achievement and long-term skill development of students. Evidence 1. Academic achievement on standardized tests. In a study conducted by Craig Erico Ogden of Georgia Southern University in 2010, titled A Comparison of Student Performance in Single-Sex Education and the Co-Educational Settings in Urban Middle Schools, it was found that students placed in single-gender classrooms outperformed students in mixed-gender classrooms on the Georgia State standardized tests. As Ogden wrote, the results of this study indicated that 6th grade male single-sex students and 7th grade female students in the sample group were more likely to pass the GCRCT in mathematics than their peers in the other instructional settings. These higher scores clearly indicate a benefit to education for students in single-gender classrooms because these students have higher scores on this mathematics competency exam. Evidence 2. Clear gap in the student achievement occurs in middle school. The gains found in single-gender classrooms in middle school could not be more timely. In a study conducted by Hurst and Johansson in the School Law Bulletin of 2006 states, throughout the primary grades in science, boys and girls perform similarly at age 9, but beginning in middle school, girls start to fall behind. By the time they are 13, boys begin to surpass girls in science. This gap achievement points to a need for alternate methods of educating students based on gender in the middle grades. Evidence 3. Brain research supports the single-gender classroom to improve academic achievement. According to the study, co-ed versus single-sex ed, single-sex education advocates often point to brain differences as evidence for the benefits of separating girls from boys in the classroom. According to a 2007 longitudinal pediatric neuroimaging study led by a team of neuroscientists from the National Institute of Mental Health, various brain regions develop in a different sequence and tempo in girls compared with boys, using 387 subjects aged 3 to 27. Researchers found differences in visual processing and language learning brain areas between the sexes. Evidence 4. Students in single-gender classrooms found greater success in science and math in their future lives. Christine Dowell with Florida Gulf Coast University in 2007 finds men outnumbering women in all sectors of employment for science and engineering. Jessica Shapiro with UCLA expands this in 2011 by explaining how, in the current co-ed system, women are dissuaded from joining STEM fields because of the perceived stereotype threat, which has perpetuated negative female stereotypes in math and science classrooms. However, single-gender classes prepare women for science and technology STEM fields. Single-gender classrooms will therefore help students regain engaged in learning the sciences and math more effectively than co-educational settings. Evidence 5. Students in single-gender classrooms found greater success in science and math in their future lives. PhD. Okay.
Thank you, Trinity Valley. At this time, Oak Ridge, negative opening statement, again 4 minutes long, and the reader will read a prepared speech giving arguments that oppose the resolution.
Our first argument proves that when students are separated by single-gender classrooms, it is easier for teachers to rely on misguided gender stereotypes when they are teaching. Professors Rebecca Bigler and Elise Elliott studied the pseudoscience of single-sex schooling found that placing students in classrooms based on their gender and making assumptions about their psychology, brains, and interests and learning ability will virtually guarantee that teachers' expectations are biased and their gender-based practices are misguided for most of their students. For example, a common negative gender stereotype is that girls excel more in English and history rather than math and science, but this is not true. According to Matthew Wilburn from Voice of America, a new study of academic performance in more than 30 countries and spanning nearly a century shows that girls are better than boys in math and science as well as other subjects. Single-gender classrooms are often based on incorrect and harmful stereotypes and limit what the teachers are willing to teach. Therefore, single-gender classrooms are not beneficial to the students. Our second negative argument is that negative stereotypes not only harm the quality of education that teachers provide in single-gender classrooms, but these stereotypes also have negative long-term impacts on the students in these classes. According to Rebecca Bigler and Elise Elliott, research in developmental psychology has clearly shown that teachers' labeling and segregating of social groups increases children's stereotyping and prejudice. Imagine the consequences of creating separate math classes for black students and white students. Even if enrollment were purely optional, the mere existence of such classes would lead to increased racial stereotyping and prejudice. As true for race, classroom assignment based on gender teaches children that males and females have different types of intellect and reinforces sexism in schools and in the culture at large. Even if educators don't intend on promoting these negative stereotypes, students will still get the message loud and clear that girls and boys learn differently and should be treated differently. Students will take these negative stereotypes and apply them in their interactions with other gender throughout their lives. Our third argument proves that students who don't get used to working with opposite gender at school cannot work together effectively in the real world. Instead of using negative stereotypes to guide their interaction both now and in the future, both genders need real-world experience with each other. Laura D. Hainish, the co-director of Lives of Girls and Boys Initiatives on Gender Development and Relationships Project at Arizona State, found in her research that when boys and girls played mostly with the same-sex classmates in preschool, they began to behave in more gender stereotyped ways. Boys played farther from teachers, became more aggressive, and used more rough-and-tumble play over time. Girls moved closer to teachers and included more gender play. You start to see increasing segregation. Children develop a fairly limited set of interaction skills, less understanding, appreciation, respect of one another. While students may be able to interact with the opposite gender outside of school, this interaction does not provide the same benefits. According to the National Association of School Psychologists, in the past, schools have relied exclusively on families to teach children important interpersonal and conflict resolution skills. However, increased negative societal influences and demands on family life make it imperative that schools partner with parents to facilitate this social learning process. Students need teachers to guide them as they learn how to navigate different social situations so they can use these same strategies in the real world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Oak Ridge. That concludes our opening statements. At this time, we're going to be moving into the first cross-examination. The goal of the cross-examination is for the debaters to clarify any arguments that are confusing and then point out holes or problems with their opponent's arguments. And the affirmative will be asking questions first, and they will get 2 minutes. So we will have someone from Trinity Valley and someone from Oak Ridge. If you guys would please come up first.
Is it not true that men outnumber women 73% to 27% in all sectors of employment for science and engineering?
Well, that might be true, but it is important for teachers and schools to focus on teaching that to each individual student.
Where did you get your info for the fact that girls don't do worse than boys in math and science?
Can you please repeat the question?
Where did you get your information for the fact that girls don't do worse than boys in math and science?
From various credible research studies done by universities and neuroscientists.
What makes co-ed easier for teachers?
Well, it's several things. For starters, it might not be easier, but the teachers still can be trained by the schools to handle co-educational classes and be virtually equipped to handle it.
Can the teachers not also be taught to do single-sex education?
Well, they may be taught to do single-sex education, but it is, in the world, they're not going to find single-sex jobs, so it's imperative to learn how to collaboratively work in an academic setting with the opposite gender.
But the students can also go back to co-ed in high school and make their habits in middle school, because that's where they make their habits and everything they do later in life. And then they can use the information from co-ed and use it in high school and their jobs.
Yes, but middle school is an important, but wouldn't you say that middle school is an important time for social development, and that being in a single-gender setting would affect the social argument area?
They could also have co-ed recess or sports and other activities.
In recess or sports, you're still not getting the same co-educational feeling of academic collaboration that you get in the classroom.
Okay, and at this time, we will reverse roles, and our negative will be asking the questions.
In your first argument, you said that single-gender classrooms teach valuable life skills and improve academics. Well, while they may improve academics, what about the collaborative social aspect?
They can also collaborate outside of school and also inside of school at recess and other activities.
But outside of school, you don't have much time, and in recess, you're not focusing on academics. You're focusing on athletics and having fun, and not so much collaborating.
But the academics habits need to be changed so that it's better for that gender. And outside, they can still have their communication with other genders.
And you said that self-esteem increases from a social aspect, but doesn't it really depend on the teacher to try and increase the self-esteem?
Well, there's a correlation, and it always improves. But yes, the teacher does matter, and teachers have been trained to do the single-sex education.
And if it does matter for a teacher to increase the self-esteem, couldn't a teacher also be trained to increase self-esteem in the classroom?
Yes, but it wouldn't be as effective as a single-gender classroom.
And couldn't you also decrease the class size so that students could have their voice more heard in the classroom?
Yes, but once again, it's better than single-gender.
I guess that's good.
Thank you. That does end our first cross-examination. At this time, both teams are going to get 1 minute of prep time as they prepare for the affirmative speech and rebuttal. Thank you. We are about to begin our second affirmative speech rebuttal. It will be 4 minutes allowed. The debater will present any additional arguments to support their side of the resolution and then begin to attack their opponent's arguments. This is the last time that debaters can present completely new arguments. In future speeches, they can take an existing argument and provide more explanation, research, or examples. So at this time, affirmative, you have the floor.
I will now place your evidence for contention 2. Contention 2. Students in single-gender classrooms have higher self-esteem. Studies have not only shown that academic gains in student participation in single-gender classrooms, but also the gains to student self-esteem that leads to later success in life. However, if a student's self-esteem is lowered, this will cause depression, and as a result, the student cannot focus on academics. Evidence 1. Single-gender classrooms help students avoid stereotypes. In a study conducted by Abigail James, an expert on gender-based learning at the University of Virginia in 2012, the author found that single-sex classes help kids break free of their gender stereotypes by reducing the pressures that steer boys away from the arts and girls away from the sciences. As such, students are free to reach their true potential and follow their true interests in single-gender schools to benefit of their long-term self-esteem. Evidence 2. Students' perceptions of achievement in single-gender classrooms. Students who participate in single-gender classrooms perceive a benefit to quality of education they receive. In South Carolina State Department of Education, it shows what kids in single-gender classrooms think. And a ratio of researchers say this: although boys and girls give positive reviews to single-gender experience, the strongest endorsements came from girls. 4 out of 5 girls said the classes improved their confidence, independence, and participation, as well as both their desire and ability to succeed. The perception by students that single-gender classrooms benefit their learning has an effect on their achievement. In an article published by South Carolina State Department of Education in 2008 titled, "Students Say Single-Gender Classrooms Boost Self-Confidence and Confidence Ability to Succeed." Students enroll at 18 middle schools and 1 high school agreed that single-gender approach was helping them in school, but boys and girls gave positive reviews to the single-gender experience. Students' positive assessments crossed ethnic lines with few American students. The study reveals a community of student belief that their education is enhanced by participating in single-gender classroom, as well as multiple studies show that when you enjoy something or you're happy about it, you do better at it. Evidence 3. Single-gender classrooms help students avoid stereotypes. Furthermore, Kristen Stanbury in her article, "Single-Sex Education, the Pros and Cons," states co-ed schools tend to reinforce gender stereotypes, while single-sex schools can break down gender stereotypes and boost confidence, which will help students improve their grades and overall academic achievement. For example, girls are free to pressure to compete with boys and male-dominated subjects, as math and science. Boys, on the other hand, can more easily pursue traditional feminine interests such as music and poetry. Evidence 4. Studies of the effect of school type on girls' self-esteem suggest that the source of self-esteem for girls may differ in single-sex and co-educational schools. Studies that have found higher self-esteem for girls in single-sex as compared with mixed-sex environment have typically used multi-dimensional measures composed by subcategories such as academic, athletic, and social esteem. These studies' findings suggest that levels of girls' esteem in these individual subcategories, but not their general self-concept or global self-esteem, may differ between single-sex and co-ed environments. Also, you guys say we're talking about race, race affecting this argument, but race isn't relevant. We're talking about gender. And you also said that it's teachers' job to guide students and boost their self-esteem, but it's actually parents who are helped make the child help their self-esteem and make them like social with the opposite gender.
Thank you, Attorney Valley. At this time, Oak Ridge with the negative speech and rebuttal. You'll have the floor for 4 minutes.
Our first argument proves that when students are separated by single-gender classrooms, it is easier for teachers to rely on misguided gender stereotypes when they are teaching. Our second negative argument is that negative stereotypes not only harm the quality of education that teachers provide in single-gender classrooms, but these stereotypes also have negative long-term impacts on students in these classes. Our third argument proves that students who don't get used to working with the opposite gender at school cannot work together effectively in the real world. A new argument that we have to present is that teachers should try to individualize the learning environment, but they should do so based on the needs of the individual students and not on broad and often flawed gender stereotypes. The best way to improve the quality of education in middle school is to train and encourage teachers to differentiate their teaching. In Ed Speak, a glossary of education terms, phrases, buzzwords, and jargon, Diane Ravitch defines differentiating instruction as a form of instruction that seeks to maximize each student's growth by recognizing that students have different ways of learning, different interests, and different ways of responding to instruction. In practice, it involves offering several different learning experiences in responses to students' varied needs. Educators may vary learning activities and materials by difficulty. So, to challenge students at different readiness levels by topic in response to the student's interest and by students' preferred ways of learning of individual needs of students, not based on broad assumptions about how boys and girls learn. Teachers must view each student as an individual, not as a male or a female, and make sure that teaching meets the individual needs of each student. We should be training and encouraging all teachers to provide this type of instruction instead of creating single-gender classrooms. Another new argument we have is that although there are slight differences in brain development of boys and girls, this does not significantly affect the learning and cannot justify single-gender classes. In meta-analysis of studies based on more than 7 million children in kindergarten through 11th grade, Janet S. Hyde, a psychology professor at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, found small average gender differences in such areas as activity levels, favoring boys, and ability to focus favoring girls, but no significant differences in mathematics or reading comprehension, and no solid evidence that boys and girls actually learn differently. You never hear a good modern neuroscientist say the brain is hardwired, said Mrs. Hyde. In fact, it is characterized by great neural plasticity, so any differences you see are at least as likely caused by differences in the experiences of males and females as to any kind of anatomical differences present from birth. Additional information that we have for argument number for our fourth argument is that single-sex schools are not tailoring to each individual child. They are tailoring towards the gender, and in most, if not every case, a child is not going to be exactly based off their gender stereotype. Research done by psychologist Donna Matthews agrees something that's missed by most of the studies in single-sex versus co-ed schools is the importance of individualized differences. You all stated that there were brain differences, but if the teachers use these brain differences to help the students, then the brain differences don't become a negative thing. You said that in middle schools, if the middle school is a co-ed system, then the student, if it's not a co-ed system, then the students can continue in a high school that's co-ed. But, that's not co-ed. So this actually cancels out that argument. Thank you.
Thank you, Oakridge. We are now going to be moving into our second cross-examination. I'm going to ask if our debaters for this will both step in front of the podium and face the judges so that they can clearly hear you. This time, the second cross-examination.
You said that teachers would rely on stereotypes during their teaching. Why would a teacher do that?
Because stereotypes are very commonly found by teachers, and they may use those to their benefit to make teaching easier for them.
You said in some of your evidence that students would see a message about in single-gender classrooms. What do you mean by that?
Well, by seeing a message in the single-gender classrooms, we basically mean they might feel that you're telling them that if you're only putting them with their own gender, you're telling them that they can't be with the boys. Like, you're telling them they're either not as good as the boys or the boys aren't as good as them.
But they would have been together in all of lower school and in all activities not academic, such as PE and recess. Why would they think that they were better than the others?
Well, that might just be the message they're receiving. You never know with different children.
You said that teachers could be trained to teach better in co-ed classrooms. Why can't they do the same thing but in single-gender classrooms?
They can be trained to do single-gender classrooms, but still, single-gender classrooms still don't have that same impact on students as co-ed classrooms by not giving it those different, just basically those different experiences with the boys and girls.
They would be together in other classes, or in the other grades such as lower school and upper school, correct? Because this debate is only about middle school.
Yes, but in middle school, that's basically preparing you for high school, which prepares you for college, which prepares you for life, basically in the real world. If you have to get a strong foundation, especially in middle school, and that should be done with co-ed classrooms.
Okay, we will now have 2 minutes and we will reverse roles.
Is it important for different genders to work together?
Yes, which they would have a chance to in lower school and non-academic classes, as well as high school and college.
Based on a middle school's busy schedules, isn't it important for this interaction to occur at least partly in school?
It is partly in school. They would have classes such as PE and recess to be together with the other gender. Only academic classes would be single gender.
But aren't academic classes the ones that really matters?
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Aren't academic classes where you're actually getting the knowledge aspect, aren't those the classes that really matter for the real world?
You said that they would need social interactions, which they would get in recess and PE. They wouldn't get that many social interactions in academic classes, seeing that those are to learn, not as much to talk.
Yes, but, okay. If girls have low self-confidence when they're around boys, shouldn't schools directly address this issue and help girls learn how to overcome their low self-confidence by giving them practice around, like, working with boys?
They can have that during PE and recess. They don't need it during academic classes.
Do you not believe that in recess and PE, that they're not getting that knowledge setting in learning? Don't they have to learn to be able to work together and not just talk about, like, hey, did you go to that party last
They
weekend?
just learn how to work together in lower school, high school, and college. They don't need it in middle school.
Yes, but isn't middle school the base and foundation for high school and then your life?
Lower school is the base of middle school.
You said girls have lower self-esteem from boys. But really, isn't it the girls that lower other girls' self-esteem, especially in middle school?
We will now have 1 minute of prep time as we prepare our rebuttals and another cross-examination. All right, we are about to move into our first affirmative rebuttal. This speech is all about attacking the opponent's arguments and building back up their own arguments. The affirmative will have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
In your opening statement, you said that single-gender education creates harmful stereotypes, but it actually eliminates them. Going back to our first contention and our fourth evidence, Christine DeWelde with Florida Gulf Coast University in 2007 finds that men outnumber women 73 to 27% overall in all sectors of employment for science and engineering. Jessica Shapiro with UCLA expands on this in 2011 by explaining how the current co-ed education system, women are dissuaded from joining STEM fields because of the perceived stereotype threat, which has perpetuated negative stereotypes in math and science classrooms. Single-gender classes prepare and encourage women to go into STEM fields like science and technology, and eliminate the stereotype that women should not participate in these fields. Plus, gender stereotypes can be created in any environment. not just single education. Students in co-ed schools, colleges, and sports teams still experience gender stereotypes. You also said that the students rely on their teachers to learn social skills, and that single-gender teachers can't teach social skills effectively. Students also learn valuable social skills from their parents, friends, and siblings at home and outside of school, and there's no reason to assume that single-gender teachers cannot help guide students socially. You also said that teachers will succumb to gender stereotypes, but that isn't necessarily true. Teachers participating in single-sex education will be trained for this type of education, just like any co-ed teacher is trained to teach co-ed education, and thus they will not submit to these stereotypes. You also said that brain differences are not sufficient enough to go to single-gender classrooms, but it makes sense to teach one gender based on their skills, on their strengths, to better their education and ability to learn. And contrary to what you said, there is concrete evidence regarding brain differences by neuroscientists, as you mentioned in our opening, at apa.org/monitor/2011 co-ed ASP.is. Finally, you cannot guarantee to tailor to every student in co-ed education based on their own individual learning styles if you ignore the learning styles of their gender. It's important to recognize the brain differences in gender. Thank you, and I affirm the resolution.
Thank you. We will now invite Oak Ridge for the negative rebuttal. You will have the floor for 2 minutes.
You said that boys start passing girls in science and math in 6th and 7th grade, and that the methods that they're teaching need to be changed. But that's just how the brains work. Boys focus their skills on motor skills, and girls focus their skills on like language. And consider the new Franklin Academy for Boys in Tampa, a public middle school whose charter application states that the typical teenage girl has a sense of hearing 7 times more acute than a teenage boy, and continues with this claim. Stress enhances learning in males. The same stress impairs learning in females. And single-gender classrooms help bad stereotypes. It's not supposed to be based on the gender. It's supposed to be based on the individual. First, research in developmental physiology has clearly shown that teachers labeling and segregating the social groups increases children's stereotyping and prejudice. That's like separating black students and white students. Single-gender classrooms are basing not on the individual, but they're basing on what they are. Second, research on peer relations indicates that children who interact mostly with the same gender peers develop increasingly narrow skill sets and interests. For example, boys who spend more time with other boys become increasingly aggressive. Girls who spend more time with other girls become more sex-typed in their play. Most importantly, single-sex schooling reduces boys and girls' opportunities to learn from and about each other. Boys and girls must learn to work together at time.
Thank you, Oak Ridge. We are now ready to begin our third cross-examination. The affirmative will ask questions for 2 minutes, followed by the negative. Again, if I would please ask those participating if you would stand in front of the podium.
So in your previous presentation, why do you keep bringing up racism as it has nothing to do with single-gender classrooms?
We only brought up races once, and we only did that to make an analogy to single-gender classrooms.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So Zaki, you'll start answering that.
Alright, so I start asking questions.
All right, so now we get a reset of the clock, and we will have 2 minutes.
Okay, so you said that, wouldn't you agree that in the middle school, boys surpass girls in math and science by the age of 13?
Can you repeat the question?
You said that in middle school, boys surpass girls in math and science by the age of 13.
Yes, and
So wouldn't you agree that in a multi-gender classroom, boys can help girls if they're falling behind, but in a single-gender classroom, they couldn't?
well, they can help girls, but in the single gender classroom, the teachers are more professional than boys, usually. So it's teachers who are like more experienced, so they can help the girls better.
So in a multi-gender classroom, not only can boys, wouldn't you agree that in a multi-gender classroom, if girls are falling behind in math or science, boys can help them as well as the teacher?
Yes, boys can help them as well as the teacher.
Okay. Well, you also said that there is a significant difference in visual processing between boys and girls. What relevance does that have to single-gender classrooms?
Well, there is truly different processing between boys and girls. So that is one of the proofs that boys and girls learn differently. So separately, there should be different teaching techniques to according to both genders. So I think that's why single gender classrooms will be more effective.
Okay, and you also said that parents play a huge role in a self-esteem boost, but teachers also wouldn't you agree that teachers also play a huge role, especially since there are multiple teachers, and you also spend a lot of time with them, and a parent could be stuck at work?
Yes, I agree with that, but so teachers, they also have others.
Thank you. That concludes our third cross-examination. At this point, each team will be given 2 minutes of prep time to work on their closing statements. Okay, we are about to go into our closing statements. This speech is a chance for the debaters to explain why they should win the round. Don't expect them to discuss all of the arguments. They don't have time. These will be 2-minute rounds. They should focus on the key arguments and convince you why the arguments they are winning should mean that they win the round. And this is the only time during the debate that the negative will speak first. So the negative will have 2 minutes.
When thinking about single-sex versus co-ed schools, it's about finding the best fit for your child. This is a straight quote from Donna Matthews, a very credible psychologist. Now, in a couple of minutes, you judges are going to have to go out there and make your decisions. So right now, it's my job to make your decision crisp and clear by painting you a picture with the key points and the problems in middle school education. And these problems and key points can be separated into short-term and long-term benefits and problems. So for stereotyping, we know like a problem in single-gender classrooms would be teachers are unknowingly tailoring their curriculum to what genders are good at, and so which would be leaving their equal opportunities, the education will be unequal in these different classrooms. And for the long term, as we've said, we aren't talking about sports and outside activities, we're talking about education, and as we've said, education is where collaboration and communication happen. And if these aren't happening in the classrooms, when are they going to get the chance to work on these things that they'll need long term, which also leads into working effectively in the real world. The curriculum, as their evidence has shown, curriculum, boys and girls learn differently, so if they're combined in one class, the curriculum will have a better diversity, which leads to our equal learning opportunities argument. Also, they will have no practice working in the real world with boys and girls if they're not mixing, which is true because in the real world, they will work together, and so we need to practice that in middle school education because that is where the collaboration happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Oak Ridge. At this time, the affirmative closing statement. You will have the floor for 2 minutes.
Based on all the affirmative side's evidence combined with the evidence of the negative side, there are two reasons why you should vote for the affirmative side. One, in the negative side, second CX, they claim that teachers rely on stereotypes in co-ed schools. Wouldn't this be extremely bad for the students? If the teachers are teaching based off of stereotypes, then the students could quickly catch on and start sexist stereotypes. Two, the negative side mentioned how students learn social skills in co-ed middle schools. However, they could learn social skills from their parents, lower school, high school, or even preschool, or in college, which would benefit their social skills in the real world. So therefore, vote for the affirmative side.
Both sides did a fantastic job. I want to thank you. That does conclude our debating. And I'd like to introduce Ms. Claire Reddick, who will give some further instructions at this time.
So we're going to have our